Hi, this is Michael Waits, and welcome back to India Game Changer. I've got a smiling guest with me. I love when my guests smile. Today, we are joined by Amit Dayal, a co-founder at Amoga. I am sure I butchered your name. I am sorry, Amit. Thank you so much for doing the show. How are you doing today, by the way?
Thank you, Michael, for inviting me. It's a pleasure. I'm doing good. How are you?
I am super. Before we get into the main part of the conversation, let's give our listeners a little bit of your background for some context.
Okay, yeah. I'm just like most Indians. I'm an engineer plus MBA by background.
Wait, what does that
Yeah,
mean? Like most
yeah. I
Indians, I'm
mean,
an engineer.
most Indian kids they grow up and are told to join engineering.
Go ahead.
There's a saying that you become engineer first and then figure out what to do in life. So it's yeah, kind of it is how it is.
Go ahead.
Uh, so yeah, went on to completed my 12th, went on to do my engineering. Didn't really get interested into the coding and stuff, and
Okay.
then and went to the business side. So did my MBA. Yeah, that's about my educational background. After that, I spent about 6 7 years in a couple of companies doing different generalist roles, like a little
Okay.
bit of sales, a little bit of marketing, little bit of finance. So yeah, early part of my career was more generalist, in nature. And then somewhere in 2014-15, I stumbled into the product management domain. Spent 3 4 years with a couple of companies building SaaS products, largely for enterprise.
Okay.
And in 2017, went on to start my own company again in the enterprise learning management system domain. Ran it for about 3.5 4 years. It was largely looking at the business side and the product management, of course. And had my tech. I had my tech co-founder who was looking after the tech and delivery aspects of the firm. Um, Somewhere pre-pandemic, we decided to sort of move out of that, as it wasn't growing as fast as we wanted it to be.
Okay.
So ended up selling it to another entity which was slightly larger than in size than us. So it was, yeah, sort of a good exit, not the best that we would hope, but yeah, some exit. And yeah, since then I'm here at Amoga for last almost 8 months now.
Okay. And we'll get to Amoga in a second, but I want to
Mhm.
share a funny story with you as
Yeah.
well. In 2017, it might have been in 2018, but for the first time in my life, I flew to Mumbai and
Oh.
yeah, it was great. But I was there for a reason. I was there to attend a startup conference. And the conference was really kind of cool. And one of the guys got up on stage and he was building or starting to build an ed tech company, right? So educational technology. And, he had been struggling actually to explain to his own family and his own parents what he was doing, right? What his job was. And he said, for the foreigners in the audience, I want you to understand like what the traditional career choices are for a young Indian graduate. He said there are really three choices only. He said you can be an engineer.
Yeah.
What was the other one? You can be a doctor or you can be a family disappointment. But that's him talking.
Yeah.
That's not me talking, right? So when you said like I became an engineer and then I have to decide what to do, it's kind of this flip side of the
Yeah.
same story, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, I
Yeah,
like that a
yeah.
lot.
Hopefully things are changing. When I see like kids who are 10 years younger than me, they do have a lot more choices and they're much more clear in what they want to pursue as career. So things are changing for good, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to have too many choices, but you want to have more than three choices. And you want one of those choices
Definitely.
not to be disappointing your family, which is what I feel like I've done in my life. Um, you talked about having this generalist role, but then going out and starting your own company. Can we
Mhm.
talk a little bit about that process of stopping to work for somebody else and starting to work for yourself? Because it's a leap of faith in a way, right? What was that?
Yeah.
What was the impetus and what did it feel like for you?
So yeah, I mean, a lot of it, when I look back, is a build up from from the early 5 6 years of my career.
Okay.
Fortunately or unfortunately, I was always a part of a very small 3 4 member team
Right.
trying to launch a new business. So I did that 3 times in those 6 years.
That's
A
great.
couple of them tanked, one of them still exists. So we
Okay.
were part of a larger entity, and but we were part of a group called New Venture Development within that entity. So
Okay.
I call it as a startup experience, but with the comfort of a larger entity sort of backing you up and not many risks. So I guess it's a build up from there where you are working in a small team, you're starting from a blueprint, trying to execute, taking it to a level where things start to become much more clear, then execute onto the ground, get your first revenue. So that feeling kind of is a very happy feeling, to be
It
really
is, right?
honest. Yeah, yeah. So and I was always the youngest member of that team, so I was sort of the workhorse, right? So it was all execution, execution, do whatever it takes, kind of the environment, and inevitably a lot of work used to fall on me, and I didn't mind at the, you're 23, 24, right? You don't mind
Right.
at that age. So not that I mind it now, but yeah. So it was a build up from there. At some stage, like I said, around 2017, when I met one of my tech co-founders, we got around talking about this idea, and then one thing led to another, and we were like, why not give it a shot? Otherwise we'll just sort of 10 years, fast forward 10 years, we may be regretting that we wanted to do it but we couldn't. So
So,
it
so
wasn't, yeah, I mean, that was the background. Yeah.
yeah, so this is actually a real interesting part of entrepreneurship. I always like to ask my guests, like, did you intend to be an entrepreneur? Did you intend to run a business on your own? Or was it the case, like if your family's a bunch of entrepreneurs, it feels like an obvious path, right? But for me, that
Mhm.
was not necessarily the case. But did you feel like after being the workhorse, after looking around, after learning all this stuff, you thought, hey, maybe I can do this too? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. I think it drives from when you're used to be sort of taking more responsibilities, being more accountable. So eventually you end up, especially if you're working in a large setup, you want to break out,
Right.
because your input or the kind of growth that you expect, the kind of visibility that you expect. Largely in a large setup, that becomes slightly, things are slow, right? You want to move fast, but there are systems and processes, and support functions that kind of create, there are checks and balances, so it's not as fast as you would want it to be. So hence there is a tendency to break out and try to work with, let's say, take all the decision making, take all the accountability, take all the responsibility, and so you would want to do that. So
Yeah, and
yeah, yeah,
to
yeah.
be fair, when I was working at Morgan Stanley at the early stages of my career, I kind of did the same thing.
Mhm.
I left the main office to go to Tokyo, which was a much smaller office. Not only for that reason, but a lot for that reason, to say, I can kill it here in New York. I can do really well, but there's so many other people that getting noticed, discovery, just like it is in the startup world, is hard. Let's go to a place where discovery is easier. Go there, kill it, and then the discovery possibilities higher, I think. And it worked for me, I guess, in the same way it worked for you. We can spend hours talking about entrepreneurship
Yeah,
as
yeah,
well.
yeah.
What was it like selling that first company? Do you know what I mean? Did it feel great, or did it feel like we could have made this bigger, but somebody else was
Yeah,
bigger than we were, so it's time to get out, but all the stuff we learned then we can then put into the next thing? What was that
yeah,
like?
yeah. Yeah, it was sort of the latter. Yeah, I mean, we still feel that we could have made it bigger, but then the kind of resources that we were working, unfortunately, we were bootstrapped. We raised a very small round. We were unable to raise the venture capital. We tried really hard. So some fundamentals were not working, and as first time entrepreneurs, you make a lot of mistakes. Going back in time, if I were to do it all over again, I would do it much differently.
Yeah.
So yeah, the good thing is that what we were realizing is that the efficiency was very low. So we were putting in a lot of input in terms of hours, money, sweat, blood, tears, but the output wasn't as proportional to the input. Given some bit of more resources and slightly better ecosystem, or maybe in a different domain with a
Right.
different positioning of a particular solution that we are trying to sell, the efficiency would have been much, much, much higher. So that was the triggering point, that should we continue to spend next 3 years and build, try to take it to the next level, or should we sort of move out, take a step back, and apply the learnings into a fresh domain?
And,
So
and
yeah.
what was that domain in which you were operating initially? What was that company?
So we were building an enterprise grade learning management system. So it is essentially a B2B learning platform where companies can subscribe to our platform and run learning programs for their employees. So it's called learning management system. It's a fairly defined space. We were doing few things very different as compared to existing solutions. We wanted to be more SMB focused, but we ended up selling to enterprise,
Right.
which is a different journey in itself, different story in itself. But what we realize is the true power of building enterprise grade solutions, and also, if you operate in an enterprise segment, that has its own lot of pros, to be really honest. So yeah.
But isn't this one of the big learnings of entrepreneurship, that sometimes the business that you want to build and the market that you want to target ends up being different than the market that actually wants your product.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So if you look at the SMB market in India, it's massive. Obviously, a country that
Mhm.
has 1 point something billion people and it's going to have a massive SME SMP market. And yet, if you build for them, it may be the case, and I wasn't there, but it may be the case that it's so fragmented and it's so different. And you know that every state in India is different, all the different languages, all these different things, that maybe the enterprises watched what you were doing and said, hey, that thing's kind of cool. We
Yeah.
need that. Is that kind of what happened in a way?
Yeah, yeah, to a large extent, yes. So Indian SMB is market is growing and is huge,
Right.
but building and selling to SMB is still a challenge.
Yeah, for sure.
It's yeah, it's much better to sort of target US SMB, but then US SMB is super crowded, so that has its own sort of challenges.
Right.
Uh, our main problem was, when we were selling it to SMBs, the monetization wasn't. I mean, it is you need to put in a lot of capital and acquire a lot of customers, and then hope that after 3 years you'll sort of break even. That is a good strategy if you are backed by venture capital, which we weren't. So
Right.
for us, immediate monetization was, and plus we ended up building the platform, which is far more comprehensive in nature, far more enterprise grade. So it was sort of unfair also to sell it at $2 when you can kind of focus on large enterprise. Yeah.
Do you think that there was some stuff that you learned about why you couldn't get VC funding that you now can apply to your new company?
Yeah, a lot of learning, to be really honest. First of all, 2015, 2016, 17, when we were trying. So a lot of the VC or funding ecosystem back then was largely focusing e-commerce, hyperlocal, like B2C businesses.
In India, yeah.
And yeah, in India. Yeah. So software as a service, few takers back then. Enterprise software as a service comes with its own challenges, because longer sales cycles and depth of technology understanding.
Right.
So bunch of kids, there were questions around, will you be able to sell to enterprise or not? So because selling to enterprises has its own,
It's hard.
it's hard, it
It's
requires
hard.
its own set of expertise. So longer sales cycle, repeatable, we were not able to achieve repeatable sales. So we had a bunch of customers who were very different in nature. So if I were to go back, I would rather focus on one segment, one industry, and then go deep there. Let's say become a insurance industry LMS expertise, and then go to other industries. But what we ended up doing was that we had customers distributed across five different industries, so very
Right.
varied use cases. So we were not able to demonstrate a repeatable sales or repeatable process. So maybe that was one of the reasons.
I got it. Yeah, and venture capitalists always like to see repeatable, repeat, like
Yes,
just
yeah.
literally like lather, rinse, repeat. Just keep going,
Yeah.
keep going, keep going.
Mhm.
Yeah, for them, it's really hard to see the surface level in five different verticals and then the ability to grow into those verticals. But the venture capital conversation is a
Yeah.
different conversation we can have at a separate time. Talk to me about Amoga. Coming out of the sale of your other company, you're sitting around with your buddies, maybe some of your other co-founders, you're thinking, okay, we learned a ton
Yeah.
of stuff here. We can't do nothing because we know too much in a way, right? And we've seen different markets, we've built different pieces of technology. All this stuff we did worked. Maybe some of the stuff we built we can reuse. I don't know,
Yeah.
right? What was the idea? What is Amoga? What does it do? And how did that start?
So me and my tech co-founder from my previous company, we joined here together.
Okay,
Our third co-founder is one of my ex-boss. We worked together back in 2015, 16. He comes
great.
with rich 18 years. So he has built and sold a company. He built that company for over 18 years,
Oh
$50
wow.
million dollars in revenue. So he exited that last year. It got acquired by another entity, which is a much bigger entity called
Okay.
Exotel. So I got a call from him, and he was trying to start another entity. And then I moved from Delhi to Bangalore. We had a few initial brainstorming sessions, and that's where uh, that's how the team landed together. So one is, he comes from a deep enterprise sales as well as solutioning background. My tech co-founder comes from the tech background, and I'm more of a product ops sort of a guy, right? So
Yep.
that's how we are. The three of us are positioned. So the problem statement at Amoga, what we are trying to solve is, how do you fundamentally make work exciting for employees? Work to us, the philosophy is that, so work is integral part of everyone's life, right? I
Yep.
mean, we spend 8-10 hours per day, so that's almost a one third of your life that you spend doing work. And yet there is a concept of Monday blues, dreaded Mondays, people looking forward to Fridays, and so on and so forth, right? And
Right.
and uh, and a large, so this is what we have also seen is a large part of operational team members, people who are uh, who end up doing repeatable tasks, right? I mean, let's say an inside sales rep has to do the same thing again and again, day on day, week on week. A
Right.
customer support agent has to do the same thing. So for them, beyond a point, it becomes very repetitive and boring and dreaded in nature. So um, so and when I say like sales and support, these are just two functions. It can be extended to definitely to other functions as well. So yeah, that's the fundamental problem, what we are trying to address, especially in large companies with, let's say, 1,000 plus employees, where each of these operational teams is 50, 60 members strong, and
Yeah.
they're being repeatedly told, this is what you have to do, this is what you have to do, and without being. So how do you make it interesting for them? How do you make it exciting for them? How do you simplify work so that onboarding is not that big of a challenge? And how do you make it transparent in nature, that from a employee perspective, if I am doing something, do I really know that if I do this thing uh, up to a, let's say, expected outcome, day on day, week on week, what will I get? What is it with him, right? What's in it for me? What will I get after, let's say, 2 months? What will I get after, let's say, 6 months? So those are the problem statements that we are working on.
And but how does technology solve this? And I guess one of the other questions for me is,
Mhm.
you talk about 1,000 people companies where the functional teams are 50 people apiece, right? Let's figure out first, like, how technology
Mhm.
solves these problems, how it keeps people excited, how it creates transparency, because I think there's a fall-on question to that about, like,
Mhm.
is this the way work is going to keep happening over time? But let's get to that second.
Yeah,
Let's talk
yeah.
about how tech solves this problem first of all.
From an employee perspective, if especially, and this is sort of the situation has become worse with remote teams and pandemic and all, because a lot of time now is being spent on explaining what somebody should do, and then taking stock of the progress, what has been done,
Right.
like 4 times a day. And I've been guilty of doing that last year when I was handling 20-member team remotely. Our idea is that if you have a platform where things are transparent in nature, so we are sort of working on three pillars. One is defining objectives or goals which are transparent, in nature, everybody can
Yep.
see. So the whole OKR theory. Then execution part, where if an employee is working on a certain system or a CRM, because these large teams inevitably will be working on some CRM or the other,
Right.
how do you bring whatever they are doing on a daily basis, how do you transparently bring that data all into a central system, so that somebody does not need to check for status, call and check for status, and neither the employee needs to call and tell that this is what I have done, because everything is, if you have a single source of data, then it should be visible in real time. Third is from an employee perspective, what is my growth opportunity. So can my role expectations or my KRAs or can they, are they objectively defined, are they transparent in nature? Whatever I am doing as an employee today, is that progress reflected there? Is my review that is supposed to happen, let's say, a quarter down the line, will
Right.
that be based on those objective measures, or will that be something else which is based on some subjective feeling, right? So those are the three broad areas that we are focusing on.
So, but how does that work? In other words, you create a system, it's almost like a CRM inside of a CRM, right? In other words,
Hmm, hmm,
I
hmm.
come into work every day. When I log into my technology, I can look at what my goals and strategy are. I can look at what my OKRs are, right? So OKR, objectives and key results, if I remember correctly,
Yeah,
what that means, right?
yeah,
So I know what that is every day when I come into work, what I'm trying to achieve. And I know what my KPIs are, right? As well. So I can aim at my KPIs.
yeah.
And what you're saying is that those KPIs are also logged, and that there's the technology that's created that automates the process of giving the feedback back into that CRM, so that at the end of the day, everybody knows what I've done, kind of thing, because it's all automated and because it's like a CRM into a CRM kind of thing. my performance is just getting logged on a regular basis. So everybody knows what I'm doing. I know what I'm supposed to do and I can see the progress on my stuff. Does that happen like in real time as
Yeah.
well? You know what I mean?
Yeah. And in addition to that, so it's not only what I am doing, I can also see how I rank vis-a-vis my peers, right? So there
Oh,
is this whole
wow.
concept of your effort versus the team's effort, and it also gives serves as a feedback loop to the manager. So if I am, let's say, handling a team of 20 people, and constantly see that a couple of team members are missing the mark while the remaining are sort of are doing a good job. So
Yep.
it requires, it warrants an intervention. So I can, as a manager, I'll be able to do a much more good job of giving a qualitative feedback based on these real time inputs, rather than just waiting for things to fall apart, let's say 6 months or a year down the line, and
Yeah, I
then
mean
yeah,
that's a terrible
having a
result,
difficult
right?
conversation. Yeah.
Yeah. So what is the feedback that you get from these? Obviously the employers are going to love this, right? But what's the feedback you get from employees? Do they feel like they're being over tracked, or are they happy that, because my feeling on this as well is that a great employee doesn't mind if someone's kind of looking over his shoulder because he or she's killing it anyway. And a bad employee may feel like, oh no, now they're going to know kind of thing. No?
So we are steering away from the tracking category. So there are a bunch of solutions which even track logged in hours or track like employees movement, and also we are steering away from that. We don't
Okay.
believe in micromanagement to that extent.
Great.
But what we are sort of targeting is that for a particular role, the person who is in that role should have a very clear visibility of what are the defined KPIs, or what are the defined KRAs, and how they will be tracked using what KPIs. So if I'm supposed to, let's say, if I'm a sales rep and I'm supposed to schedule demos, that's a very demonstrable output, right?
Right.
Rather
Right.
than somebody like the manager constantly
Asking.
calling and trying to figure out that how many demos you have done, or how many demos have been scheduled, or how many calls have you made, those kind of things, because they're anyway getting logged in CRM data, like
Right.
in some CRM or the other. So it's not tracking per se. I think what employees like is that there is a now a transparency. So it's the same, what we are calling it a dashboard. It's the same dashboard that is visible to me as well as my manager. So there is no subjectivity. It's a single source of truth. So there is no like he said, she said kind of a scenario here. So where
I
I am
understand.
claiming that I have done the work and the manager is claiming no,
Right.
you have not, and or vice versa. I mean, we have the situation both ways, right?
Sure, sure, sure.
So that's what we're trying to achieve. Yeah.
So one of the interesting things to me is if you're gathering all this data around OKRs, KPIs, and some logging stuff, I guess there are multiple sides to this, but does the data that you're gathering create insights to make the management process and then the creation of the OKRs actually more efficient and more targeted so that because I can create OKRs that are irrelevant, but if I know what you're doing and how you're doing and if you're doing it well, I can then create new OKRs for you based on that data, figuring out like, you know what I mean? So does that get automated too? And
Mhm.
then on the flip side, as an employee, can I use the Amoga system to say, okay, I need to be better organized to achieve these OKRs and KPIs? Does the system also help me get better organized too?
Yeah, the past performance does serve as a feedback loop, because if you read the OKR theory, that it's very difficult to nail it down to perfection in the first pass. And
Sure.
most of the our target companies, or the prospective companies that we are talking to, are sort of trying it for the first time, or maybe they've tried in the past and are sort of trying it for the second time,
Right.
tried and failed. So OKR, so yes, totally agree with you that does serve as a feedback loop. And on the second question, yes, we do have, obviously, if I can track, like I said, I can track my progress, as well as I can see where am I vis-a-vis my team members, or like if not the absolute, but I get the relative, right? I'm above median, or below median. So that serves as a feedback loop for an individual as well, where they need to improve.
Is this tied into other systems, right? In other words, when I think about software and software development, I spend a
Mhm.
lot of time talking about people that do this thing called the Mac Alliance, right? So all these things get broken down into microservices. That's what the M is for. The A is for API first. the C is for cloud native and the H is for headless. You think about this when you're developing these systems as well?
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, so we the team founding team comes with a deep, experience in building solutions for enterprise. And when you're selling to mid to large enterprise, you inevitably have to integrate with a lot of existing systems. So it
Right.
has to be built that way, and that's where our what we believe is that's where our core strength is. Because we are not building a point solution which solves a certain pain point and it resides with your 15 other applications as yet another system where
Right,
people
right,
need
right.
to sort of log in and do activity. We are more looking at it as a platform which can integrate with your existing systems. And one of the changes, our the entire platform is based on a low code platform, where we are hoping and claiming, and this is our claim, that we can integrate with your existing systems, in a very short amount of time, like in a matter of days rather than weeks. Because your process flows, your connectors, and your defining KPIs, and all of those can be easily done via drag and drop process flow builder, form builders, and all of those things.
So that's
So yeah.
super interesting. So are you suggesting this low code, no code? I mean, again, we can spend
Mhm.
hours talking about this as well. But are you suggesting then that the platform is so easy to use that even a line manager can just go, wait a second, I need to connect this thing to that thing, and maybe we're using something specific over here. We'll just connect that in. That they can do that on their own because of the low code nature of the platform as well.
Yes. So we call them citizen developers, like business
Yep.
people who know the logic.
Yep.
And yeah, I mean, the most technical you may need is writing SQL queries. I mean, if you can do that in some form or shape. But we do have our implementation engineering team who can sort of help the team, the customer, do that also. But yeah, it's very doable.
Is there a gamification aspect to this too? Do you know what I mean? Like, really, if you want to make it more fun, just think
Mhm.
like, do you know what I mean? Like, in 2 more days, if you do this thing, you get a free Coke kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Not from that point of view, but what we have, the gamification angle that we are building, is that so in any role there is always a career path within an organization, that
Sure.
you join, let's say, as an associate manager, and then after 18 months or 2 years you'll become a manager, right?
Yep.
Fortunately and unfortunately, people nowadays don't want to wait 18 months or 2 years, right? They
Right.
want to know what's in it for me in next 3 months. So we are introducing this, or we are proposing this, that that entire 18-month uh, cycle, 18-month track, can that be broken down into six small levels of 3 months each,
Right.
with defined input and defined output? And then can we have rules which either automate a progression from one level to another, or at least make the candidate eligible to move on to the next level? If not, let's say, automatically do that. That's also again configurable in nature. Gamification one is in that aspect, that I'm in level 3 and I want to move to level 4. Then there are the bunch of things that I need to do
Right.
consistently, let's say over next 3 4 5 6 weeks, right? uh, yeah, the one that you mentioned is, can that add on some points which then you can redeem later? uh, we can think in that direction as well. Yeah.
Are you surprised sometimes by the feedback that you get from the individual companies with whom you're working? Right. In other words, you want to implement this, you want to make it easier for management to manage the
Mhm.
teams, but you also want people to be more engaged and to enjoy their jobs more. Is there some kind of joy that you get when people come back and say, you know what, I didn't think this was going to work so well, but actually team A is way happier because they feel like now they know where they're going? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's what we aspire. I mean, that's what we live for, right? I mean, you build something, you put it out there for people to use, and then people come back and give you happy feedback. That's what I believe, like the product management team or the PM function is sort of strive for, living for, right?
Yeah.
So a you want to get people to use what you have built. B, you want people to be happy and give you positive feedback on
For
that.
using it. So before I let you go, is this a business that's raised money, that wants to raise money? Like, what's the status there? You said you bootstrapped the other one. You learned, that maybe it didn't grow the same way you wanted it to, so the VC money wasn't available. How do you feel about Amoga right now, and like, what's the status?
So we are very early in our journey. Like I said, we started about 7 8 months back. Fortunately, we have a bit of a capital to take us to this stage, and now we're looking at a first official round. We have started the process. The idea was to build something demonstrable, prove, get some data points against our early hypothesis that this will
Right.
work or not work. So we're We have done successful POCs with 4 5 customers. We are looking to get, yeah, we're selling it to other companies as we speak. So this is the right time where we have started approaching the venture capitalist or the investor. Yeah, we have
That's awesome.
started approaching for investment.
Do you use this OKR and KPI philosophy inside of Amoga? Do you know what I mean? Like, are you using your own software as well to manage your own teams? They don't have 50
Yeah.
people on them yet, but again, just being able to test it out would be kind of cool. Yeah.
So we are about 45 overall in
Are you
strength.
really already?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So one of our small marketing, 3 member marketing team. So we tried it with dev, but a dev team is it was we didn't. Yeah, I mean our marketing team is sort of using it. We
That's
the
cool.
entire system to manage our own OKRs.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. Okay. What's the best way for people to get in touch with you? If they want to learn more about Amoga, if they want to just try out the
Yeah,
product, or if they want to help you raise money?
great. My email ID is fairly simple, Amit at amoga.io.
Okay.
And yeah, my phone number is also, I can sort of say
We'll
it
put
out
that in
here
the
or
show
put it
notes.
somewhere. Yeah, I'll put it in the show notes. Yeah.
Okay. Amit Dayal, co-founder of Amoga, thank you so much for coming on the show and doing this. I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you. Thanks for inviting me. Really enjoyed.